What's up, everybody? I'm here today just to talk to you a little bit about two black leaders from history that we all know about, and most people know about. If you don't know about, I'm going to let you know about them today. Two leaders who made a significant impact on the people of their day, and also are still making a great impact, even in their past. They're not here anymore, no longer here, but their life, their legacy still lives on. And I'm going to talk to you about a discovery that both of those leaders made that changed their lives. Okay, the two leaders that I'm going to talk to you about today that I've been reading about are Frederick Douglass and Malcolm X. So Frederick Douglass was born in the 1800s. He was born a slave, okay, in the 1800s. Frederick Douglass, born in the 1800s, he was born a slave. And then Malcolm X was born, free. Of course, he was born in the 1900s. He wasn't a slave, but, in the 1900s, blacks were still being treated in that period after slavery, the early 1900s. Blacks were still being treated very bad in our country for most of his lifetime. So, just to give you a little background, both of these guys made a discovery in their lifetime that really changed their life. And as I read their book, as I read their autobiographies, both of them wrote an autobiography. And as I read their autobiography, it kind of speaks to me a little bit because, obviously we can't speak to them personally, but the way you can speak to them is by reading their book, reading their autobiography. They're talking about their lives. They're telling you what they went through. They're telling you about their experiences. So I encourage you to read either the autobiography of Frederick Douglass or the autobiography of Malcolm X, or read both of them. But both of them made a discovery that can still apply to our lives today. When Frederick Douglass was a slave, he got transferred to one slave owner's house, and the wife of the slave owner, of this particular slave owner, believed that she wanted her slaves to be educated. So she started teaching Frederick like how to read, how to do his ABCs, how to write in cursive, how to print. She started reading books to him, having him read books. So she was teaching him how to read. Back then, actually, this was punishable by a very severe punishment. Back in the 1800s, when Frederick was around, it was illegal to teach a black person or a slave how to read. Okay, but this particular slave owner's wife was teaching Frederick how to read, until one day her husband came home, who was the slave owner. The plantation owner was her husband. He came home and he saw her teaching Frederick how to read, and he like cussed her out. And, he said a lot of stuff. Frederick was sitting right there, and some of the things that he told her was like, one of the worst mistakes that we could ever make is to educate a slave. Because if you educate a slave, they begin to ask questions. They start to become unmanageable. They're uncontrollable once they're educated. Okay, they shouldn't know anything. Basically what he was saying. He said, if you give a slave an inch, he'll take a mile. Okay, he cussed her out, used some pretty bad words with her. And Frederick says this was like a revelation to him, because when he witnessed this, he knew that the key to his being liberated, being free, was to educate himself, to continue to read. And what he said was he went on this lifelong quest to educate himself and to learn how to read. He continued to learn how to read from the boys in the neighborhood, he said. He said many times he would carry like pieces of bread in his pocket. And when he went out and played with the boys, like the white boys in the neighborhood, in exchange for them giving him like a letter on how to write letters, a lesson on how to write letters, he would give them pieces of bread in exchange for that. So he always kept like little pieces of bread in his pocket, he said. And anytime he can get the boys to teach him how to read, he would. And as he became a man, he just continued his quest to learn how to read and educate himself. He says he knew that was what was holding him back in life, was his lack of education. Now I'm going to talk about Malcolm X a little bit. Malcolm X, who ended up, going to jail in his lifetime. Didn't know if you know that or not. But, before he went to jail, he was like a hustler on the street. He says he was the number one hustler in the streets of New York and Boston. He was like the best at, running games out there on the streets, the street vernacular, the street talk, the language. He could speak it with the best of them. But he also says he struggled when it came to like academics. He struggled. He couldn't put together a sentence. Like he couldn't even write straight. He said when he read books, he couldn't read a page without skipping like 30 to 50 words. So after he read a page, he really didn't understand what he understood what he read, because he had no vocabulary. He had no comprehension skills. So while he was in prison, he says two things that happened to him was he noticed this man that was there who was really well educated. And when this guy would speak, people would gather around him, like, just people would gather around, the guards, and everybody would just gather around and listen to him. Okay. This kind of like impressed him, like, man, I want to be that guy that everybody listens to. When I talk, I want people to listen to me. Okay, I was that guy he said I was that guy on the street, but when it comes to non-street things, I'm like, I don't have no respect out, So he says that something that he did was he got a dictionary from the prison library. And he said he just opened up the dictionary one day and couldn't believe the amount of words that were in the dictionary. Okay. He says, so what he did was he just went through the dictionary. He's like, wow, I can't believe all these words, man. What would happen to me if I could learn all these words and the definitions and how to spell them? So what he did was he went to the library or to their prison store, or how, where they got food, how they got supplies. And he ordered some notebooks and some pencils, and he kept the dictionary. And he says he just started copying down every page in the dictionary, starting with the first page, letter A, whatever words were on that page. He copied down each word and each definition and each part of speech, every one of them. I don't know, maybe there was 30 words on that page, let's say. He said he copied that down in his notebook. And after he copied them down, he went and he read each definition and word and kept reading those over and over again, until he remembered what every word on that page meant and every way it could be, different way that word could be used. After he learned that page, he went on to the next page. He copied the next page of A's, all the way through the alphabet. He says when he got done copying the alphabet, he probably wrote over 1 million words, he believes. Okay, this increased his love for reading. He says he would read all night. He knew that the guards were walking around the prison and you had to be in bed. He said he knew their patterns. So when they would walk past, he would act like he was asleep. And then he would lay back down after the officer went past. And he said it would be about 50 minutes before he came back. He said he would lean up against the cell door, the bars, and there was a little bit of light coming in. And he would read all night long. He said his passion for reading just grew and grew and grew. He just read and read and read. So what is this telling me? We had one black leader who grew up as a slave in the 1800s. We had one black leader who grew up in the 1900s. One was a slave, one was in prison. Both of them made the same discovery that I believe still applies to our life today. Both of them developed a passion to learn how to read and educate themselves. Notice I didn't say go to college. I said they learn how to read and they develop a passion to educate themselves. I believe that in this day, 2021, Malcolm X and Frederick Douglass are speaking to us to say, if you want to be somebody in this life, if you're in a situation where, you're not going nowhere in life, or, you just feel like, your life is not moving, educate yourself. Read, read, read. Whatever you need is in reading. That is proof through Frederick and Malcolm's life. Read and educate yourselves. If you have children, have them read and educate themselves on a daily basis. Not only what they're doing in school, but educate themselves outside of school. I hope that this will help you a little bit. Like I said, we know that we can't speak physically to Malcolm and Frederick because they're gone, but their legacy still lives on. And if you want to speak to them, if you want to kind of speak to them, read their books. The Autobiography of Frederick Douglass and the Autobiography of Malcolm X. Peace. I hope this helps you. Have a great day.